Hello, my fellow Yu-Gi-Oh players. I'm Ben 10,000 Wajo, your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh superhero, and today, guys, I'm gonna do one of my little old school style videos. I'm gonna be giving you guys a little presentation where I attempt to teach you guys how to create a good rogue deck. If you're new here, most of the videos that I kind of work with and the decks I play are usually not considered to be the top tier stuff. They're always considered to be the rogue, or at least the rogue variant, probably to a meta deck if I do showcase one. So I'm going to be teaching you guys how I go about building that, and then, you know, if I was going to be playing it, especially going to be playing one of these decks competitively. So without further ado, let's get started. First one we have is understanding the meta decks. So basically what you guys want to make sure you understand is the meta decks are the most effective decks that are going to be here. So what you have to do is learn each one. Learn its weaknesses, its strength, because one of the first things in creating a rogue deck that is going to be good and functional against these decks, these are the decks that are going to basically be kicking your teeth in at a tournament. So it's really good if you to use a simulator of some kind, Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, Dev Pro, Dueling Book, whatever you have access to, and learn the strategies of these decks. That's the first step to building a competent rogue deck that can compete. You know, once you understand what your opponent is doing, you know where to do precision strikes to take down that deck. Next thing you want to do is understanding your own deck. If you go into this deck, if you go in there blindly building something and hoping it'll work, you're not going to do well. You have to learn everything that your rogue deck is capable of. And I am particularly guilty of this one. I went to a regional a few years back where I was playing a deck that I did not completely understand all the strategies, the components of the deck, and I suffered for it. I actually truly suffered for it. I made moves that made no sense for the deck. I practically cheated because I did one of the cards I played was a field spell, and instead of doing something only once like I was supposed to, I actually did it multiple times. I still lost the duel because the other player was just better and understood his own deck better than I understood mine, so it didn't really matter. And I dropped right after because I realized that I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But, you know, I make mistakes. That's the part of the learning curve here. One of the other things is when you're building a rogue deck, you have to understand everything that your deck is capable of. Because once you know your deck inside and out, it's one more advantage against your opponent. Now, for the next part of that is you want to have, for each of the decks that you play that are rogue, you want to have a secondary strategy. This basically is the other trick that your deck can do, or the support trick. So as you can see here, we got Red as Darkness Metal, King Asmagod, and Shiranui for the three decks that you just previously saw, which were Lightsworn, Dinos, and Felgrand. Each of those cards right now are considered a rogue deck. These guys are the secondary strategy cards that will assist the current deck. Now I'm just giving you an example of what secondary strategy cards look like. This is why, for example, with Lightsworn, which is the deck I'm the most familiar with, it plays the Shiranui engine. The Shiranuis allow the Lightsworn deck to have easy access to Minerva, plus they also have access to powerful zombie monsters, which allow you to continue your plays. So having a secondary strategy is so important. For example, if your opponent played something that weakens the Lightsworn strategy, it may not necessarily stop the secondary Shiranui strategy. Excuse me, guys. So it's always good to keep those in mind. Alright, now for the next one. Consistency, consistency, consistency. You want those type of cards. These cards is what's going to give you the advantage, ultimately, in any game. Consistency equals speed. Basically, Pot of Desires, the Supreme King, and the Soul-Eating Oviraptor here, all of these cards are +1s. And +1s are how you win. Ultimately, you have to think about card economy. It doesn't really matter what deck you play or what strategy you pick, as long as you can constantly continue increasing your options from your card pool. So basically, this is one of the big things. Now, I know that you guys are thinking, wait, two of those cards are for meta decks. You're kind of right. Pot of Desires, for example, yes, has been seen in various meta decks, but it's actually decent in any deck. And Supreme King and Oviraptor are just on summon searches. The idea here is just to give you an idea. A +1 is a +1. As long as the card you add to your hand is a card you can use, it doesn't really matter what that card is. Alright? For example, like Trap Tricks Myrmeleo searches you a trap hole, you set the trap hole, now your opponent has to worry about the trap hole. Example there. So consistency is key. The next thing you want to have is disruption. A way to disrupt your opponent's plays. This doesn't really matter how you do it, whether it's forcing their monsters face down or compulsing them back to the hand. Or simple or back row hate like Solemn Strike, or you could even use monsters that negate your opponent's card effects. This could be anything: Crystal Wing, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, Light and Darkness Dragon. If you want to go a little old school, it doesn't really matter as long as you can get these cards out consistently and keep them out there to disrupt your opponent. Disruption is one of the other key factors to winning a game. In any rogue strategy, if you can play cards that disrupt your opponent's plays, they can't continue to play, which also means you're going to have an easier time taking the win. Next one is competent card choices. Basically, what you're wanting to do is you don't want to play cards like Magic Cylinder, and you know what I mean. And I have the example here. You just don't want to play a card like Magic Cylinder. It's sure, it can stop one attack, maybe do some damage, but ultimately, that's not going to save you. What you want, this actually goes right back to card economy. Well, this is why a card like Blazing Mirror Force is a better card than Magic Cylinder. Magic Cylinder only stops one attack. Blazing Mirror Force can stop not only the monster attacking, but potentially take out the rest of the opponent's forces. So so what you want to do is you want to think about competent card choices. Now, granted, I understand that not everyone has access to certain cards, so you're going to be required to play what you have. But if you can't afford something, that doesn't mean you have to make bad choices. So this is just an example. So make sure you're always picking a competent card choice. Next one. Combining the old with the new. If one of your favorite decks to play and your rogue deck of choice is an older deck, that's perfectly fine. The truth is, there's a lot more room to play around with this deck than a lot of, I would say, competitive players might give you credit for. And that's fine. Let that be their folly. There have been competitive players who have proven time and time again combining the old with the new can regenerate an old deck. And this is an example. Dark Magician, Apprentice Illusion Magician, she breathed Luna. When she came out, she breathed new light into an old deck. So basically, you have to do the same regardless of the deck archetype you choose. Make sure that you pick new cards that breathe old life into your older deck and give it a way to maybe more consistently do its strategy. I know I'm probably boring the hell out of you guys, but that's just gonna be an easy example there. Next one is we have studying other working road decks, because understanding how these guys won YCSs and regionals and stuff like that might give you some insight into how you can make your own. Each of these the cards you see here on the screen represent a deck that has recently won or has won in the past. Like in the case of the barrier statues, they actually have won games and regionals in the past, and the other two have recently won this year at various regionals. So the other idea is when you are building your own rogue deck, maybe it's a good idea to look into what has worked or what has worked in the past and learn from previous winners. The next one is thinking outside the box. This one is key because, as you guys can see here, and this is going to probably be harkening back to some older decks, this is what I'm showing you here is the Dragon Ruler deck mixing with the Lightsworns and Grand Soil breathing new life into the Psychics. There was a deck that these two decks were decks that were thought to be dead. For example, Dragon Rulers at the time were limited down. Now I know Grand Soil and Dragon Rulers are banned right now, but this is just an example to show you guys to think outside the box. Everybody laughed at the players who piloted these decks in their respective YCSs, but they piloted them to victory, and they won. The idea here is to show you guys that thinking outside the box and taking this new niche card can actually breathe new life into your favorite deck, and maybe may combine in ways that most of the other players are not going to see and understand how you did it. Whether this is abusing some niche strategy or, you know, breathing new life into an old one. The idea here is to say, like, for example, the Dragon Rulers, right? With the Lightsworn deck. I'm familiar with that. I've piloted that. A lot of players laughed at the guy who first won with this, thinking Dragon Rulers, Lightsworns, those don't work because Dragon Rulers need dragons or their respective attributes, which Lightsworns are all light monsters, and very few of them are dragons. But that guy was able to find a way to make that work, combining it with Light Ray Diabolos, Eclipse Wyvern, and the Judgment Dragon, ultimately bringing the deck to a competitive level. The same can be said for the Grand Soil Psychic deck. A lot of people probably thought that guy was crazy or that deck was silly or dumb, but the truth is it's quite innovative. The guy figured out, okay, I need earth monsters to summon Grand Soil. Grand Soil is going to summon back my monsters. I mean, it's completely mixed. And then, of course, the Psychic monsters, you know, have abilities upon being banished or banishing other ones. It's various other ones, but he made it work to his advantage. I don't completely understand that deck, I'm going to be honest with you guys, but I know he won with a Grand Soil Psychic deck, and now you could probably look it up on YouTube, which I suggest, you know, if you want to learn more about it. But my point is to show you guys that if you think outside the box, not only will you have a leg up on your opponents, it'll probably provide you with a victory. I cannot tell you how many times at my locals I have won because I play odd cards that nobody thinks of. I was one of the first guys at my locals to play Rise to Full Height in a Lightsworn deck, and it works. It's a better electromagnetic turtle, in my opinion, but it worked. So the point is to show you guys thinking outside the box can give you a leg up when others don't see it. Alright. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's going to be a little bit different from what I've been giving you guys, but I hope you guys will stick around. I've been doing this thing on my other channel, the Unbound Series channel, where I have been doing death battles. So make sure you please go over there and check out the death battle with the aforementioned picture that you can see here on the screen. The White Ranger versus Master Chief. If you want to if you watch that, give me some pointers in the comments. I'd be greatly appreciated. If you like anything you see over there, please subscribe to the channel. That's my geek channel. It's just geek stuff in general. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave me some comments on how I can improve, and I'll see you guys Sunday. I'm Ben 10,000 of Wajo, your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh! Superhero, and I'm signing off. Peace, guys.